Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre a la app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Today on CityCast Denver. Denver's beloved Broncos return to the NFL playoffs this weekend, and the city is buzzing. But are fans excited enough to help fund a new stadium? Rumors are swirling about the owners and yet another city-shaping mega project. So on this Friday's News Roundup, we're digging into the details and talking about all the other big stories of the week, from the start of the state legislative session to a tragic loss for the local music scene. Today is Friday, January 10th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the show about the city where you're not a true Denverite unless you still have your Christmas lights up. Justine.
Well, I never put them up. So
Same.
I know, Paul, I didn't ask you because I know it's a sensitive...
Because I've lived in 3 different places in the last 2 weeks.
It's a sensitive topic for you.
Thank you. Thank you for respecting my
Well, I didn't want to be like...
situation.
Yeah. Where are your Christmas lights? You know,
Did me
mine
start crying 2 minutes into the show.
that's rough.
It's been a rough few months, listeners.
Paul's
Thank
been
you.
living through a mold remediation where they ripped out both of his bathrooms. So it was either live in a home and pee in the yard or be an actual human and
Those
live
are
in a
my
house with a bathroom.
top 2 home fears: the mold and like a septic situation where they have to like come
yeah.
That was one of the guys, one of the million, guys that I've
That
talked to
came to look
recently.
at
He was
your
like, the
place.
thing you don't want, and he had just gotten off one of these jobs, was like, if the water line that goes to your house, like main water line, if that starts backing up with like,
Yeah.
that's like toilet stuff coming back in your house. And
That's where
I'll just
home
leave the
inspection.
house.
it's
I'll
like,
abandon
burn
it.
it down.
Our home
Skip
inspection when we
town.
bought our house caught that before, and we were able to have them pay for it. So that's a lesson learned. But my Christmas lights are still up because I didn't take them down before it got too cold. So they're going to be up till God knows when.
True Denverite.
Thank you. Thank you. It was accidental. But, well, it's Friday. We're in the 5280 Magazine studios. You've already heard her voice, Justine Sandoval, our politics and green chili correspondent. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
And you've heard his voice, producer Paul Caroli. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, so before we get into the news, Paul, you have a quick correction.
Yeah. Also, I'm reminded of the last time I had a correction. Someone wrote in and when they were like, you guys called it Paul was wrong. I have a pitch for a segment for when Paul is wrong, which so flattering. Thank you for writing in. This is an apology. Try that one out.
But an apology.
Yeah, I don't know how that feels. But we talked about who we called foie gras, quote unquote, terrorists on Tuesday.
The folks that...
The Duck Alliance, the folks that have been busting into, they actually have only busted into one restaurant, Mizuna, on New Year's Eve with bullhorns. And there was kind of a violent scene where Frank Bonanno, the chef and owner, bear hugged a guy. And then someone else, one of the protesters got stomped on by some of the Mizuna staff. Anyway, at the time we talked about it on Tuesday, I had not yet talked to someone from the Duck Alliance. I have now.
Yes.
And so I wanted to clarify and add a little bit more background from their side of things because it was a bit of a one-sided conversation because I hadn't talked to them yet. So Thomas Gorman, their spokesperson, who does not live in Denver, he told me that he insists that they are non-violent. They do not do any violence. That's a principle of their group. It's an international confederation. They have a few dozen local activists that are working on this protest, trying to get restaurants to take foie gras off the menu. So yes, there was a violent scene at Mizuna, but that's not their intention.
Instigated by them.
He feels like when they went in with their nonviolent protest, which by law he says they're allowed to do, it was the Bonannos that instigated the violence. Now, of course, as we talked about on Tuesday, the Bonannos thought they were in an active shooter situation. So like,
yeah, it does get very complicated, but that is a fair distinction.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought it would be helpful in case anyone is at a restaurant where foie gras is on the menu. If some people come in with, bullhorns and are making, confronting people and shouting, it's still America. It might be an active shooter situation, but it's likely this Duck Alliance trying to make a point.
So check your menus for foie gras. Foie gras. I don't. It sounds disgusting to me. I
Raw frog?
I want to know if it's good, but
I don't know. I eat spam, so I can't really say anything. But
Foie gras.
Foie gras. Okay.
Yeah.
So that could be on the horizon.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. I'm glad you talked to him.
Yeah.
We always
Stone
like to hear.
Cellar Bistro in Arvada, Bistro Vendôme, Mercantile Dining. These are places that I looked up. Just watch out. Watch out. They say they're not done.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing. We have a little bit of business before we get into the news. We're hiring. We have a temporary newsletter editor position. You could come and join our awesome team and write about the greatest city in the world every day. We'll put a link to the application in the show notes. If you're a regular listener or regular reader, we would love to hear from you. You know how this show and our newsletter works and how much fun it is. So come and join us. Okay, top story. The Broncos stadium. The Broncos are good again, but are they good enough for a new stadium? Paul, before we dig into the reporting, can you catch up some non-sports people on where are the Broncos right now?
Sure. Justine, have you been watching the team?
Wow.
Do you know? Are you up on this?
I know we're going to the playoffs for the
Hell
first
yeah.
time since 2015, so I'm back on the bandwagon.
Yes.
I never leave the bandwagon because
Yeah, I was gonna
I am
say.
a true Denver girl. Family is devoted to the Broncos. It's cultural. But, I'm more enthusiastic sometimes than other times. And now I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back with everyone.
I jumped on 2 years early. I jumped on with Russell Wilson, and then it turned out that was no good. But I'm in it now. I know the players and stuff, and it's fun.
So they're doing good.
They're doing good. They're in the playoffs. They're probably going to get smoked by Buffalo this weekend, so expectations low. But they got this quarterback that's great, and things are looking up. And the thing that is really important that we're going to talk about is this new ownership group that's really kind of sparked this change. 2 years ago, the owners of Walmart, this family, the Walton Penner Group, it's mostly this guy Greg Penner, I think, runs the day-to-day operations, but they bought the team for billions of dollars. And every year they've been making huge improvements, infrastructure improvements to support the team. They spent $100 million on renovations on the stadium the first year. Then they built a new practice facility for the team.
They're really investing.
Yeah, and the rumor has been because the lease on the land and the current stadium expires in 2030, will they pay for a new stadium? Because Empower Field is now like 30 years old, almost 30 years old.
Since I learned from the reporting, we should say the Denver Post ran this great in-depth investigative series by multiple reporters this week called The Stadium Game, Inside the Lucrative World of Colorado's Pro Sports Stadiums. Great. We'll put a link in the show notes. You should read it.
It's really incredible.
Whether you're a sports fan or not, it's a fascinating look at how these billionaires and cities and sports fans and the built environment all interact. But yeah, I guess get into that a little bit more then, Paul. So the thing that was interesting to me was that, it's coming up on 30 whole years.
I was just completely
Were you
shocked
not-
by that
not
article.
blown
'Cause
away?
one of the other things I mentioned in the article, that Coors is the third oldest in the National League of all of the baseball
Of the
stadiums.
parks,
And it was built in the
Yeah. So I was just kind of like, wow, like stadiums just really do age that fast. And that was mind-blowing to me.
kind of obsolete.
Yeah. In 30 years.
I don't know about that, but there is a lot in this story about what a new stadium could look like and what fans are looking for and these experiences, roofs and VIP and
it is a
different
little
things.
weird. The expectations that fans have and that players have, I think, too.
Really?
Because players want to play for the place that treats them the best, that like puts them on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
Like that's something that I think that the Walton Penner Group really understands, and that we as fans of this team should be happy we have owners that are so rich and want to spend so much on this team to attract great players, is because they said, Greg Penner, the last time he was asked about this a couple of weeks ago, he said, we want to set a new standard for franchises to both play for and work for. So setting a new standard, that's like, maintaining world-class facilities, a world-class experience. That's like consistently investing and paying a lot of money to make sure the fans of the Broncos feel like they're treated like kings when they go to the game.
But this also involves the fans in another way when we talk about the politics of it and the funding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was something I found really interesting in this story too, is Empower Field, built way back in 2001, was funded in part by voters. In November of 1998, Denver voters passed referendum 4A to fund the construction of Empower Field and replace the old Mile High Stadium. We were actually voting to extend a sales tax that already existed that had been established in 1990 to finance. That's how Coors Field was financed.
Well, that's what they said. I think that was marketing at the time. I did a little bit of a dive on this campaign.
Okay.
I think the Broncos sold it as an extension, but it was a different tax.
Oh, really?
They said, hey, we're already paying for the Coors Field. We're already paying this tax.
It already exists. It wouldn't change
so
much
let's just
for
keep
you.
it going. Let's, you know what it's like. It's familiar. You love
So it was
sports
good
here.
PR. It was good PR.
Yeah. There was this ad that the at that time, and this is another big part of it, a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach, Mike Shanahan for the Broncos, he was in an ad and he was like, let's just keep the tax going and we'll pay for a new stadium, Don't you love us? We're giving you these Super Bowls.
And it can kind of be sold as like, you're not getting a tax hike. You're already paying something. We would just be continuing what exists. But you're saying there wasn't exactly a direct extension.
Total spin.
And I remember this because in middle school, 1998, we had to do a debate. And I was the only kid that would debate the opposite side against paying for the taxes.
That's so interesting.
And that was one of my arguments, that it was actually a new tax, that they weren't being clear
You're
about
on
it.
You're
and
on it,
Justine, you're just
I was
perfect.
hated by the entire class because we had just like back-to-back Super Bowl, and everyone was like so excited.
That energy was real.
The whole
and,
side of the class was in their Broncos stuff, and I was there alone, the most hated girl of the day.
So Justine, do you think, looking at this now, today, this same situation, do you think that voters would have an appetite to pay for a new stadium?
It's hard to tell because you see like other cities where it seems like the franchise and the owners will bully people by threatening like to move the team and all these tactics. So people feel like, oh my God, we have to make sure. I think like in 98, people were like ready to invest or were excited. The Broncos gave us like
Pat Bowlen was threatening to move the team outside the city, though.
Threatened to move the team. I think it's kind of different. Like it was mentioned in the article, the difference between the old school owners of teams, where it was like a clout thing, versus a business investment, like this group coming in and seeing the Broncos as not necessarily like this team for the city and the city's benefit, but for their own economic benefit.
Sure. It's an investment.
Yeah. So I think that ultimately people will pay for a new stadium if it's brought. But I think that there'll be a lot more conversation around money in teams. And someone like the Broncos, I know there has been conversation of taking them out of Denver and moving the stadium somewhere outside. That could probably motivate Denver taxpayers to vote for a tax to keep the stadium here in the city.
Do we think that's a real possibility? Do we know?
Sure.
I mean,
they talk about it openly. In the same interview I saw with Greg Penner, he was like, we're constantly evaluating options inside the city and out.
Yeah, that's a fear of mine,
that feels
personally,
like a threat.
as a Broncos fan. And
Definitely.
I thought, too, I'm like, they'll never move the Broncos. But hearing so much conversation about it and them talking openly about it has made me, as a fan, nervous. And I think personally I've been reluctant to invest tax money into new stadium when there's like these billionaire owners. But as a Broncos fan,
you don't
that
want to
fear
lose
is real.
them.
I don't want to lose them. I like having my Broncos right there.
Yeah. I'm a big fan now too. I love watching the team, but I think the mood has shifted in the country around this public financing stuff for these stadiums. I don't think people have the appetite for this kind of thing that we did then. And even then it was like kind of a close vote. It was 57-43, I think. Yeah, 57-43 in the 6 counties that voted for it in 98. But I talked to like people I watched the games with, like big Broncos fans for life. My brother-in-law, he was like, yeah, I don't think so. The Waltons are so damn rich. Why should we subsidize them?
Yeah.
That was his comment.
That's a totally fair point too, because why do we need to put our tax dollars for it? If this is their investment, then they've got the money to throw around, obviously. But it is interesting also just in the climate like you're talking about right now, Paul, especially in Denver. We just had an election where one tax to fund Denver Health passed and one for affordable housing did not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that says that Denverites are not ready to just sign off on another tax.
Although, I mean, the thing we were saying about the affordable housing tax was like the mayor didn't define what the impact was going to be.
Fair.
For a tax like this, where they could be like, we're going to have this giant, beautiful stadium with a state-of-the-art technology and a gorgeous roof. So we're going to be able to have Taylor Swift come play concerts in February. Mm-hmm. That's pretty concrete. That's something that was like, oh yeah, that would make Denver a better place to live.
The draw of a Super Bowl?
Maybe a Super Bowl in Denver, that would be huge impact.
That was a subtext too I was picking up on. It kind of reminded me of the Red Rocks conversation, and not only in the way that think about how many shows Red Rocks was doing 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, how many they're doing now. It's a year-round place practically. This could have even more. And we know that, think about the Taylor Swift impact. Wasn't it like $17 million on our economy over like 3 days or something? that would be huge. That does change the game. And it's also interesting. Something else that I found interesting in this piece was the comparison to Coors Field. So the Monforts notoriously are not the greatest owners in that people don't feel like they give a shit about the Rockies. But the stadium itself has the entertainment value, and the surrounding area, which has been built up around it over the last 30 years, is a viable entertainment destination. And notably, it is not surrounded completely by parking lots the way that Empower Field is. Do you guys think that that's a big selling point that could be a big selling point for taxpayers, is to say, what happens if we actually redevelop this area and make it more amenable to humans?
Well, I've told this story before, but when I was 13 years old, I was a hockey-loving kid, and I was living in Columbus, Ohio. I had just moved from Canada, didn't have a lot of people in my life yet, hadn't made a lot of friends, and the NHL decided to bestow upon Columbus a franchise that became the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I went to the inaugural game, and I got so into this team. And what they did was what has become very trendy in professional sports. They planted the stadium in the middle of downtown, and they built an entertainment district around it. And that was what the experience was to me. I remember going out to dinner with my dad, hanging out in this very cool downtown neighborhood. It was a night, we spent a lot of money on those hockey games.
Yeah.
That's what Coors Field is. It's beautiful. It's a value add to have the entertainment district around it. It's a way for the Monforts to make a ton extra money. And I think that's what the Walton Penners want too. We've heard rumors about this for years, them trying to develop around the stadium. I think it's on hold while they're trying to make this decision about, how much money they can make on the team versus how much they want to invest in the neighborhood and maybe building a new district around it, what they can get from the city. But I think that's definitely the route they would prefer to go if they can, because that's just like that's what Kroenke is doing with Ball Arena.
Yeah.
He's investing in this exact same thing.
We're already
you
in
have
that
the team that
process.
makes a ton of money, and then, multiply it with all the bars and the restaurants and everything else.
I have to say I had a similar experience to you as a child with the building of Coors Field. And maybe you
Same.
can talk about this,
Yeah.
Justine, but I will say,
1993.
yeah, I was super into baseball at that time because A League of Their Own had come out in 1992, and I was playing softball as a middle schooler, and it was so exciting to do, like you said, go downtown, see a game in person, get a jersey, do all these things. So I guess I wonder, I don't know, is the Coors Field thing is sort of propped up as a unique situation too, is it?
Yeah, it seems like it's one of the stadiums where that concept actually works.
And you're one of those people, right? You go you love opening day. You go down for the party.
For me, it was a huge experience, like the same experience of getting a baseball team. 1993, they were giving us all of this free Rocky stuff at school. We'd get the tickets, and then they built the stadium in the community I grew up in. And so it was a big thing. I remember my aunt was on a committee with people from the neighborhood advising on Coors Field, and that's how they got the rock pile. And so they
which are the
agreed
cheap seats.
to always have a section of affordable seats so people in the neighborhood and community could come, and they would only be the cost would only go up with inflation. So they were $1. I think they're $5 now. You can still get them for $1 sometimes too. And that was a way to incorporate the community that was already there to be able to enjoy the stadium. So we did that a lot. And it's really one of the most affordable sporting activities you can do with the family. I mean, because going to a football game, even going to a Nuggets game, is a lot of money.
Those seats up high are not cheap.
Yeah, but you can get away with cheap tickets at Coors Field for the night and get down there pretty easily. And so, yeah, I'm dedicated to the Rockies, not because they're a winning team, but because they're my local team. And a night out at Coors Field all summer is just great. It's fun. You get to watch a great sunset.
Yeah.
Eat a hot dog, drink a beer in the sun.
Wander
it's one
around
of the best
downtown.
things about Denver. I mean,
Yes.
not just the Rockies especially, but all of these teams. There's not a lot of cities that are the size of Denver that have professional teams in all the leagues that we do. This is a sports loving city. This is one of the things that makes Denver great, is you have all these options to get involved in these communities and be a fan and appreciate these teams together.
I think the accessibility helps too. Like I said, it was easy for people to go to those games. They had input from the community to make it affordable. Where I worry about a stadium
I wonder with
expansion
this
with the
state-of-the-art
Broncos,
stadium, are they going to have a rock pile?
how much more expensive it's going to be to get into that stadium, and how much it takes away from, I think, the fanfare if people can't actually get in there and enjoy it.
Well, that's where we get into the fun, like the intrigue around these negotiations that are probably happening behind closed doors right now. And it all is going to come down, well, a factor is going to be how good the team ends up doing. Because if the team is great and the fans love the team, then the politicians who are negotiating on behalf of the city know that they have a little less power. You know, it's a leverage game.
Yeah.
Because if it goes to the voters, then the voters, who are maybe also a lot of them are fans, are going to be more interested in voting for public financing. Although I still think that's pretty unlikely.
You think public financing is unlikely?
I just think it's so out of fashion. I don't think people want it. You know, too many liberals have read the articles about how the finances of these things work out and how big boondoggles they turn into, and the displacement and the effect on the neighborhoods.
That's what I'm thinking about, is the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, they're not great stories.
Yeah, the Denver Post has a quote: "Economists have long maintained that publicly funded stadiums are a poor use of tax money, more apt to shift entertainment dollars from one neighborhood to another rather than produce economic gains for host cities." That's a fair question. I mean, if we're talking about also the lowest income zip code in the city is right adjoining to this area. And the portion about Sun Valley in this investigative series was really interesting because I felt like folks that they spoke to were kind of just like, whatever happens, happens. It's not like they're admitting defeat, but they're kind of like, it's not really up to us. We just hope that for the best for our community. Yeah. And it's already changing quite a bit over there, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, we'll see. I thought it was interesting they talked about Burnham Yards as a possible location for a stadium. You know, that would be a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, Paul, how do we orient? Because I have to say, I didn't even think of, I always forget these places are right next to each other.
Yeah.
It's like, this is an old rail
I-25,
yard.
right, goes right down between them. And like, when you're on I-25, it doesn't even feel like the city. You don't, yeah. But it's right on the other side of I-25. Is that big rail yard by the restaurant that serves
Buckhorn?
Yeah, Buckhorn Exchange.
Yeah, so it could move around. I mean, I'm still interested in, would they take the team elsewhere? I'm thinking in the story, they do these great comparisons to, like, we talked about this the other day, Paul, Oakland. Oakland lost 3 teams. And do you guys think that fear of losing the team is enough to maybe entice folks to vote? Would that be a factor?
They never even gave the Raiders a stadium. Like, they never invested in them. So I think that the Broncos, and maybe this is just my hopefulness, but the Broncos are embedded enough in like Mile High Denver culture that it's part of their appeal. And I think they wouldn't move with the Broncos.
Yeah.
I
wonder.
I think the risk is them just moving it out into the suburbs. Like maybe out into Aurora or down south near Castle Rock or something like that. Because like the fan base is all up and down the front
regional,
range. And
right.
like I think that's the draw for these games. People come. If you've ever tried to drive on I-25 on a Sunday, you know that the draw is regional. So like you could put a stadium out in any of these places and they'd get they'd fill the seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be driving to whatever suburb.
Gaylord of the Rockies.
Like in Kansas City, they have their football stadium like 20 minutes out of town and the baseball stadium's right next to it. And it's just like a sea of parking lots around these two stadiums.
That would be like repeating what we already have.
Terrible experience.
See, somebody visiting here told me recently that they love that all of our stadiums are kind of in a row and you can get to, because it goes Coors and then Ball and then.
Yeah, they all kind of run
that all
along
your
the
stadiums
Platte.
are in the city.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it is nice, isn't it?
I also love that Elitch's is right there, but we don't know what's happening with that either. So.
I know. I went in. Yeah, I
Ugh.
started digging into the Ilitch stuff, but it seems like it's unclear what's going on next.
Yeah, they just haven't announced, but it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's going to move somewhere else. We'll see. Be interesting. Something to watch. This is definitely something, like we said, they're coming up on this sort of expiration date for this stadium, and we'll see what happens.
And maybe an expiration date for the 2024-2025 Broncos. Justine, do you have a prediction for this Sunday?
Yeah.
They're playing the Bills, so they're going to win.
We're going to win, and we're going to go all the way to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
What do you say, Paul?
Yeah, sure.
Where are you at?
No, I think they're going to get smoked.
Okay.
Yeah. Buffalo's really good.
Okay, I just was reading headlines, and they're like, why teams should be worried about the Broncos in the playoffs. And I'm like, that's enough for me.
I mean, they got a chance, but yeah.
Well, it may all hinge on that. If they get to the Super Bowl, we may be looking
want
at a new stadium
Yeah,
sooner
November,
than later.
We'll be voting.
Did you hear that, Bronco? You want a new stadium, you better win the Super Bowl this year.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more news.
Will, talk to me.
ABC Tuesday.
They took his daughter. She's coming home. alive.
Will Trent, the series critics are calling powerful must-see TV, continues to thrill.
Shouldn't we strategize before we go in there?
If we screw up this case, a cop killer walks free.
With the riveting conclusion to a 2-part season premiere.
Help me.
Get down!
Will Trent, all new Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
And we're back. Okay, so there was a story in Westward this week that touched on something that we talk about on the show all the time, the big blue creatures that inhabit the Mile High City, like Lucifer and the big blue bear. But now a guy in Aurora has come up with a possible third mythical beast who may or may not already exist. Paul, tell us about Baal the blue goat.
I talked to the creator, and he told me
this
the way you pronounce it is
week. Okay.
Baal.
Baal.
I can't do it very well, but it's like a sheep's ba. Baal.
Would you? Okay, so Westward ran this piece this week by this writer, history teacher about this mythical Can you explain what you talked to him? I was very confused by this piece.
Yeah, I was too. He's a very creative guy, but he's a history teacher in Aurora. His name's Ryan Clapp. He is a person who loves the whimsy and magic, everyday magic in the world. You know, I feel the same way. And he wrote this piece where he imagined, or he revealed the truth of this mythical entity called Baal, who is a big blue mountain goat that has been captured, perhaps, and kept inside one of those big geodesic domes out at the Buckley Space Force Base. And may be responsible for luring all of the people that now live in Denver. So powerful that he has created some sort of like aura of power, and there's like he supposes that there's a triangle of mystical power formed by the big blue bear by the convention center, Lucifer, aka Mustang, out at the airport, and now this guy Baal on Buckley Space Force. Yeah, I
want to read a quote from his piece that describes what you were just talking about. Denver has seen an unprecedented level of growth in the last 15 to 20 years, but why? There are, quote, official answers from sociology, economics, and history buffs, all complicated interweavings of causality. Occam's razor tells us the simplest answer is often the correct one. Here, then, is the simplest answer. Colorado grew during this period because someone in our city or state government had an interest in and connection to the occult. Justine, what do you think about this potential mythical third blue creature?
Oh... I read that and I was like, okay. I really like that we've caught on to this blue animal theme.
We have something here.
I like it. I really like it. I welcome Baal. I can't do it.
You got it.
Baal.
There it is.
There we go. Sorry. Sorry. And he's like fits the whole satanic goat looking thing.
It is a very We'll put a link in the show notes. The image is a little startling.
Although there's only one true Lord, Dark Lord, and that's Lucifer. But yeah, I like the blue theme. I like where we're going with this. I invite more blue creations. But because we kind of can't see it in the public space, I kind of care less about it. I think it's not as impactful. I'm like, well, we can't see it. It's like we're not going to be driving down the highway and see.
Well, that's something that Ryan, and I'm happy to amplify, but Ryan, me and Ryan are together on this now. We want to have a thing, a physical Baal.
Yeah.
He reached out to the Buckley Air Force or Space Force Base and asked them hey, is it real? Is there actually this guy stuck in one of these domes? Are you keeping him safe? And he's no comment so far. But if they're interested in helping out, maybe we could build this thing. Put up a real Baal and start. We could be the city of big blue animals, the way I've always wanted.
I mean, we have a robust public art program.
We have so many animals we can have big blue versions of. We could have a moose.
Moose would be cool.
This is my question then for you, Paul. You've pitched this many times, this
Yeah.
idea of a third blue creature. Would this fit that bill for you?
Yes. So the three of us, we talked about this a year ago, and our big idea is to save
That's right.
downtown. This was this is my only actual original idea,
Yes.
was let's build a new one. And at that time, my best idea was giant blue dragon on top of Union Station, which I still think would be badass.
I don't know if it fits their aesthetic, but I do like the idea.
No, it would totally change everything about it, but it would be very badass. My new idea is, and maybe we do all 5 of these, build 3 of them at once. But my new idea would be like a little bit more, I think, tasteful and staid, and a play on the history of Sloan's Lake, where there was the amusement park. Big blue elephant.
Yes.
Roger the elephant.
Roger.
I'd say put him in the water. Imagine the pictures of the downtown skyline with Roger, the big blue elephant, with his feet in the water, a reflection, the sun on him, and then the skyline in the background.
I'm in. Let's fundraise.
That's my
Let's
pitch.
do it.
Do you like that? I think that would be just beautiful.
I think I just feel sadness because the Roger story is
I
so
just
sad.
learned about Roger.
Oh, I'll share a link in the show notes. We did a great interview with David Forsythe, the historian, and he wrote this piece about
Is it
Manhattan
really?
Beach. And
Is it really buried in the intersection?
I don't
Rumor
know.
is
I don't know.
maybe it's in one of the domes at Buckley Space Force Base.
So
No,
you,
it's probably not.
it sounds like you've got some other pitches, Paul. You gonna pair up with an artist and make this happen, or what?
I would love, if there is an artist listening who wants to work with me on making Denver the city of big blue animals the way we should be, that would attract tourists from all over the world to come and take the pictures and
Call Paul.
buy the postcards. Get at me. I want to work on it.
720-500-5418. Call Paul. Let him know you want to work on this big blue creature project.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, our Rocky Mountain highs and lows. And we're back. This is the time when we talk about things that were awesome this week, things that were not so awesome. We'll start with our fails so that we can end on a high note. Paul, do you want to start with your fail?
This is a fail for anyone listening who doesn't already own property in Littleton. Beautiful Littleton, Colorado.
Home of Southwest Plaza Mall. Yes.
And the new Little Man ice cream
Oh, really?
on that little strip in Littleton.
There's a cherry cricket over there too, I think. Nice.
Hey, it's a great place to live for now. Because Littleton City Council Tuesday night caved to NIMBY pressure. Dozens of neighbors showed up claiming to have not been informed promptly and that they were not
Tales old
aware
as time.
that this vote was happening, and they were very angry. Apparently it was hours-long meeting, very emotional, because the Littleton City Council was poised to vote for upzoning to allow for duplexes and townhomes where there's currently only single-family housing. So the Littleton City Council, they're not going to be voting on this for a while now. They're going to take some more time for public engagement, which sounds to me like they're not going to pass it. Like it seemed like they almost certainly were.
Was this for the whole city?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah. I mean, all these people that live there and own property there don't want their neighborhood to change. And I guess that's their prerogative.
This has me thinking about the conversation I had with the mall historian a couple years ago. Alexandra Lang, where she was familiar with that mall, with Southwest Plaza Mall, and saying, what a great thing if we could fill those parking lots with housing. And that would have been perfect for that. But that does suck.
Yeah. So thanks
Come
to
on,
Matt
you
Frommer,
guys.
friend of the show, Matt Frommer, for letting me know about that was happening. That was a bummer.
Bummer. Justine, what's your fail?
Wow. My fail, it's not really a fail, but it's like something to pay attention to. It's kind of a low, but Colorado lawmakers went back into session this week, but they're going to be facing a $1 billion budget shortfall in the new legislative session.
That's rough.
Yeah, so it's starting out pretty rough, but the budget shortfall represents a big setback for Colorado because it could potentially impact public services, public education funding. So it's kind of a big deal as we're going into, it's going to be a big budget fight this year.
Yeah.
I just hope that, it's really no one's fault as far as parties go, but they just need to be able to work together
How
and come
things are
together to
allocated,
make
yeah.
sure that, money is allocated to where it needs to go this legislative session.
I'll tell you whose fault it is. least a big chunk of it, about $350 million of it, is the vote we did in November. I mean, whoever voted for this measure to spend all that money, new money to hire police officers, that's where a big chunk of that deficit is coming from. So because we have to do that, now we're going to have to make cuts on a bunch of other stuff that people like.
Yeah.
Of course, Tabor is a big part of the root cause of this, is that, the tax thing that we have that makes it really hard for us to tax for anything.
Yeah. And, it just sucks. Daunting because it can impact our future and future plans to make our state better.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about this on Monday.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to try not to cry. This is an obituary, not a fail really, but local legend in the Denver music scene, incredible frontman and all around really wonderful dude, Luke Fairchild, passed away last week. He was in all these amazing bands. He's one of those people that's like, it's special that he's a legend to people that know him, but it's also a bummer that the rest of the world didn't get to see his art. But he was in all these really great, like heavy sludge metal bands, all different kinds of bands, but Quits, Get Some, Mako 1972, Sparkles, White Dynamite, and my favorite, Kingdom of Magic. He was just a force in the music scene in a way that's like subtle, in that he was nice to everybody. He was really welcoming to you, especially for me as a woman musician in the mid 2010s, when a lot of dudes were not that nice to you. And his band, Kingdom of Magic, was always super nice to us and invited us to play shows with them. And he's a born and raised Colorado boy from the Eastern Plains, just a lovely person all around. And he passed away, had some health issues, and he was 49. He was really young. And I have seen countless posts from fellow musicians and friends in the scene this week, just heartbroken that we lost our friend. So my heart goes out to Luke Fairchild's family and everybody, all his bandmates, everybody that was friends with him. And I just wanted to say, I would love to share one of my favorite songs from Kingdom of Magic at the end of the show.
Yes, we should.
And I'll put a link to some of his music so you can hear it. But lost a lovely person this week, so big bummer.
Sparkles, that name I remember on Monday when we were at Westward.
Yeah.
Jason Heller, the new staff writer. Came into the room. He was so excited that someone had sent him. Can we talk about this?
Yeah, someone had. I don't know if I should say who sent him. Someone sent him some unreleased stuff from Sparkles, which was one of Luke's earlier bands. Or actually, the first time I saw him was like early 2000s at Monkey Mania in Sparkles. Before I knew him, I saw him play in that band. And thank you for saying that, Paul. I'll share the obituary from the memorial piece that Jason wrote about Luke, who is also a great friend of his. It's a very honest and searing take of the complexities of being somebody's friend and the beauty of the art that they actually made together. They were in a band for a minute too. But so there's some unreleased music out there. I'm hoping it gets released. I got to hear some of it. But if you, just put on one of Luke Fairchild's projects and just enjoy the person that he was. And please read this piece from Jason Heller. Yes, you mentioned he's a new staff writer, but he's an old, long-time writer and chronicler of Denver's music scene. So FID to my friend. All right, let's...
FID?
That was his saying, and I can't say it on the air because it includes bad words. F it, dude. Let's go on to wins of this week. Justine, what do you have?
So my win of the week was a winter tire rush. According to Denver 7, there was an influx in winter tire purchases this week ahead of the storms, and that shops were reportedly busier than usual with people actually getting snow tires, which means people can drive on better. The roads. And to me, that is a win. You don't need a 4x4 to get around the streets of Denver.
If you have one, maybe make sure it has good tires on it.
I've seen plenty of 4x4s, just
giant trucks in my neighborhood. Tires. Sweet, all over the ice today.
You just need tires. That's it. And if you want to go up I-70, you need to make sure you have good tires because you will get caught by the traction law and you'll get fined if you get stuck or if you stop traffic. So to me, that's a positive, keeping traffic flowing in the winter months. Thank you, Denver Rights.
Good on all of you.
Get your winter tires.
That is nice. I'm happy for those people. Olivia had this idea. We do a show about what's your toxic Colorado trait. what's the thing you do wrong? Just
What's your terrible?
This is mine. I've never once done the snow tires. I'm so sorry.
Paul loves ice skating around in his Prius.
Prius handles like a dream in the snow. But yeah, no, I'm sure that's very dangerous, and I'm sorry, everybody. But yeah, I've never done this. I should. I should
don't
do
go
it.
up by
Get on the
70
bandwagon.
during a snowstorm.
Yes. You mess it up for everybody. Paul, what's your win?
Yeah, well, my win, Justine and I watched this together, although I didn't stick it out until 10:30 at the church over by 9th in Colorado to see the end. But the Senate District 31 Vacancy Committee that we've been following on the show, the race to fill Chris Hansen's seat, who resigned less than a week after he won re-election to the state Senate. So this is a big district that's a lot of central Denver. So the winner, got to give my win to Matt Ball, who was I would say
This was an upset,
victory.
you said? Yeah.
A lot of people were expecting Sean Camacho, the representative-elect, or Stephen Woodrow, current representative, to win this race. It was a competitive field, 7 candidates. I thought all of them were really, really interesting, competent people. But yeah, Matt Ball, Mayor Johnston's policy director, a former, I think he was in the Army. He's a high-powered lawyer guy. Did a lot of like white-collar lawyering, but now does public service. And he won. He won this race. He was ahead in the first vote, and then he came out ahead at the very end. And he's going to be, from late night Tuesday and then to be sworn in on Wednesday morning. I think he's actually being sworn in on Friday. But got to give it up to Matt Ball for the big win.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Also, the engagement on something like that, a vacancy seat, is really cool to see people really engaged in the process.
Yeah, it was fun.
So.
What did you think? What was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, you were there, Justine.
You saw the whole thing go
You were
down.
there.
There's been a lot of talk about these vacancy committees and how the process goes. But, it went pretty smooth. A lot of rounds of voting to get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we can have a better process, but it worked for how it was supposed to work and the vacancy was filled. I was blown away, like you said, the fact that this person was going to get appointed to this job and then go to work the next day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's politics for you.
I don't know. I'm sure he had a lot of conversations with the 110 people that ended up voting for this, but I wanted to just call out the one moment that I thought made a difference for him that night. Was when, so each of the candidates, they had to have someone from the district nominate them and speak for a minute on their behalf and then get seconded by someone else. And the person that Matt had nominate him was an Afghan immigrant who was a translator for the Army, who he worked with when he was over there.
Yeah.
And so he talked about how Matt helped him immigrate to the United States and get settled in Denver. And then he got a really big pop from the crowd when he was like, Matt gave me the important advice when I came to the United States. He said, always vote Democrat and cheer for the Rockies no matter what happens. Which I thought was really sweet. And I could see that changing people's minds.
When someone takes that on to help somebody else do something, a big process like that, that's really admirable. It takes a lot of work.
I think you could tell that was a real relationship. I thought that was cool.
That's awesome. Well, I'll close out our wins. It's low cost tree season. I got a press release from the Park People, which is an awesome nonprofit that helps improve green space in Denver. And now through February 15th, Denver residents, businesses, nonprofits, and schools can apply for trees. And they're just $10. And if you've ever bought a tree for your yard, they can be hundreds of dollars. So there's 28 low tree canopy Denver neighborhoods that apply for the $10. And then other areas in the city can get trees for just $35. And again, typically we're looking at hundreds of dollars for trees. I've bought trees through the Park People before. They not only you get an affordable tree, but they explain to you in detail how to plant it, how to take care of it, what you need to do in the different seasons. So even if you've never done this before, it's something that you can do for your own property, but also it benefits the city as a whole because you're adding more trees to our tree canopy. So shout out to the Park People. Again, this runs through February 15th. You can sign up and then they deliver, or you go and pick up the trees in April. And I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's a great program. I love it.
Yeah, what a severe need. There's such a disparity between the rich neighborhoods and the poor neighborhoods in this city about trees.
Yeah, my neighborhood's one of them. Yeah. We got to put a tree in our yard, and then we also got one to put in the right of way, so it's along the street. So a lot of options. Okay, one more thing before we go. Just a reminder, get your tickets to Heyday. Heyday is our first big event. We're calling it the Indoor Fair with urban flair. It's like a classic country fair, but with a very cool Denver twist. Paul, what are you excited? Oh, sorry, March 8th.
Have you heard about this, Justine? Do you know we're doing this?
I'm like, what?
Hello,
Justine.
we're doing something really cool.
We're going to have you be there too.
Yay.
Do stuff with us.
You gotta be there.
You can come and meet Justine.
Come meet me in person. Be underwhelmed.
Oh, stop.
No chance.
Oh,
no
please.
chance.
No, talk to me. I'll give you the hot goss in person.
I was going to say, the stuff you say off mic, we know some good stuff. Paul, what are you excited about with Heyday?
Well, when we first talked about this last week, someone reached out and they were like, please tell me Josh Emerson will be there. I have never seen him perform. And while I'm happy to announce, you'll see him perform at the show. He's going to be emceeing with Brie.
I'm so excited. Honestly, it was a little bit of a relief. He's so much fun to have like in person live that he's going to make this so special.
I mean, doing crowd work, he's maybe the funniest Denverite.
It's great. But we're going to have all kinds of fun stuff. It's for kids and adults. So I think we should say that. Vintage arcade games, tarot readers, my personal favorite, Denver themed balloon art. We're going to have, I think Olivia talked about this earlier this week, this photo booth inside of VW Bus.
Our producer,
It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you go to heydaydenver.com and you can buy tickets now, March 8th, again, if you're a member too of CityCast Denver, you get a 25% discount on those tickets. So another incentive to become a member today. All right, Paul, Justine, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brie. See you next time.
Hey, Paul mentioned this earlier, and we want your help, if you dare. We want to hear your toxic Colorado trait. Tell us that embarrassing thing you know as a Coloradan you probably shouldn't do. Leave us your name and neighborhood, or not, at the Toxic Colorado Trait Hotline at 720-500-5418. Again, the Toxic Colorado Trait Hotline is open and anonymous if you want at 720-500-5418. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Paul Caroli, Olivia Jewel Love, Lizzie Goldsmith, and Selena C.A. Reynolds. Peyton Garcia and Adrian Gonzalez write our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, and I'm your host, Brie Davies. Our music is by Los Mocochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren, plus more this week from the Epidemic Sound Library. If you love the show, you should come and join us at Heyday. Heyday is our indoor fair with urban flair, coming up on Saturday, March 8th. Get your tickets now at heydaydenver.com. Also, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell Bo Nix about us next time you see him. You can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week.
Yeah, she was in front of the repo lot.
I
like,
love
girl,
that you busted her out.
Repro, I cannot say repo.
It's not Wyatt's. This one wasn't Wyatt's.
No,
we don't like
it was
them,
the
but
repo.
I'm like,
can't
girl,
put this one on them.
I'm like, ghetto people like me are going to be like, that's not, because I've also had my car towed by once.
You're like, I know the difference.